Hello, everyone. I'm Bo from Brutal Commentary, and today I'm going to be breaking down our next matchup for UFC 321. In this one, we have our featured fight and bantamweight title eliminator, or as Umar Nurmagomedov takes on Mario Bautista. Nurmagomedov is 18-1 as a professional, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Meanwhile, Bautista is 16-2 as a professional, 5-0 in his last 5 fights, currently riding an 8 fight win streak and the second highest win streak of all active bantamweights. For Umar, because I'm not going to constantly say Nurmagomedov, it's just going to be it's just going to make the video much longer. Was undefeated, 18-0, cousin of Khabib Nurmagomedov / brother of Usman Nurmagomedov, and was, I would say, on a hot streak more or less in the UFC, outclassing just about everybody he fought, including Nate Maness, Hani Barsalos, who he KO'd, Beksen Almakhan, and then his most recent win was to Corey Sandhagen last August. Then Umar suffered the first loss of his career to Merab Dvalishvili at UFC 311 in this January. But you gotta think, Umar gave Merab easily the toughest test in his whole run as not only champion, but just this win streak that Merab has been on. Umar was the only one to give him the toughest test, and still seems like the only guy in the bantamweight division that can possibly dethrone the machine. Meanwhile, Bautista, as I mentioned, he's on an 8 fight win streak now, the second longest in the division, only behind Merab. And since losing to Trevin Jones by KO, seemed to have made Bautista flip a switch, and since then just improved fight by fight and become such a good fighter. His most recent fights were a submission win over Yudo Canteni, I believe I'm pronouncing that correct. Then a decision win over Damon Blackshear, decision win over Ricky Simone, decision win over Jose Aldo at UFC 307, and then most recently at 316, the decision win to Patchy Mix. Now, before I actually delve into this fight, I do want to give my thoughts on Bautista real quick. I know everyone basically wants this man hung for how he fought Jose Aldo, and it's kind of ruined his reputation as a guy who can put on exciting fights. Because I do believe, Bautista is an exciting fighter. I mean, his Ricky Simone fight, I thought was pretty entertaining. His fight with Sandhagen was awesome. And you look at some of the finishes he has as well, like that triangle armbar from the back was pretty spectacular. But I honestly don't know what people want from Bautista when he fought Jose Aldo. Yes, I know he was holding him against the fence and at times just stalling the fight. But he was also trying to win and get a big win on his resume against a legend. And at the end of the day, he fought smart and he won the fights fair and square. If you thought Jose Aldo won, fine. But don't blame Bautista, blame the judges for him getting the win. And then with his Patchy Mix fight, I thought it was entertaining from a technical standpoint, seeing Bautista just box Patchy Mix's head off and really expose Mix for not being as good as a lot of people, including myself, thought he was. Now, looking at this fight overall, I think this is going to be a really competitive fight. Umar Nurmagomedov, like all of the Nurmagomedov family, he has spectacular wrestling, specifically that Dagestani style, where his first shot is not necessarily meant to take you down, but it's the subsequent chain wrestling, especially up against the fence, that takes his opponents down. You notice, though, Umar has a more preference over submission than dominant wrestling positions / ground and pound. Actually has some really good rear naked chokes as well, like against Brian Kelleher, for example. But I think what separates Umar from the others, like Khabib, is that he's much better of a striker. His kicks are very quick and dexterous. In fact, he's able to throw out a lot of flashy kicks, like question mark kicks, high kicks. He's even able to follow it up with punches that still have power to them. It's how he knocked out Hani Barsalos when he threw the rear body kick and followed up with the same side punch. That's what knocked out Barsalos. And including in the fight with Merab, where, Umar, I know, broke his right hand after, I believe it was the second round, if not the first. He's got pretty good boxing overall, But I do think Umar's best strikes are his kicks. Like I said, they are very quick, very dexterous. He can he can fire them at all angles, at multiple different targets. Leg, head, body, and what's the one I look for here? He mixes it very well with his threat of the takedown. You look at the fight with Sandhagen, he out struck Sandhagen on the feet, and that was due to implementing and imposing his wrestling early, which then made Sandhagen far more fearful and just too hesitant on prioritizing defending the takedowns over Umar striking. Meanwhile, you look at Bautista, I would say his overall game revolves around three things. One, his cardio. He's got tremendous cardio. He can push a hard 15 minutes, like you saw with the Mont Blackshear, which was a grueling grappling fight for majority of it. Ricky Simone, who's a very high pressure, high volume boxer wrestler, and Bautista essentially outworked him in their fight. And then you look at Jose Aldo, where that was fought in Utah and high elevation, and Bautista looked honestly pretty fresh by the end of that fight and looked like he could go another round. And then with the Patchy Mix fight, I mean, he threw up an absurd amount of volume over Mix. And I know Patchy wasn't given much resistance. And usually what happens if you're able to kind of not deal with much resistance and you're able to just fight the fight on your terms, you're not really going to get tired in comparison to, say, a much more grueling fight or a fight that's much more competitive. But Bautista's ability to mix it up to the body and head constantly, throw out constant volume, and just get into Mix's face. And then by the end of the fight, he looked like the fresher guy. Bautista has really good cardio. He has a really good work rate. The man never gives up on himself. And it doesn't matter if he's in like losing bad positions and or seemingly down on the scorecards. He's just going to keep fighting. And he's going to keep pushing a pace. He's going to keep going forward. And he's going to either go and implement his wrestling or implement his striking, no matter what the odds are. Finally, it's his fight IQ and decision making. You look at Bautista. He has one of these styles I greatly appreciate in fighters. It's the ability to never fight the same fight twice. For example, with Patchy Mix, Bautista smartly never tried to implement any grappling against Mix, and for the most part, just let it play out on the feet as he knew he was going to be the better striker than Patchy Mix. Then you look at Jose Aldo, where Bautista at times would engage in the striking, but more times than not, when he fought in the striking, then he would go for a takedown. And even though he knew he probably couldn't get Jose Aldo down, because, Aldo's takedown defense is legendary, he was able to hold Aldo against the fence for majority of that fight and made sure that Aldo never really started trying to build momentum or build a comeback. And then you look at, like, say, the Ricky Simone fight, where Bautista mixed in his striking and wrestling and was basically had a mission to, I would say, match and or outpace Ricky Simone for the 15 minutes. And I thought he accomplished that. Overall, Bautista's a smart fighter. He's a really good fighter. You can say he's boring or not. I don't care. He's a very good fighter, and I like watching him fight. I like to see how he comes up with a different strategy for his opponent. And he's, an MMA lab, bantamweight. They have some really good bantamweights in that camp. And overall, he's coached very well. It looks like he listens to his coaches too. Now, how these two will fight is going to be intriguing. Bautista's best range is would be that medium range where he's able to implement his boxing, and he does have some kicks as well. Now, meanwhile, Umar, I would say, is better at long range striking. Like I said, his kicks are his best weapon. So if you have if you primarily use kicks as your main offensive striking, then long range is going to be your preferred range. And for the wrestling, I don't think Umar is going to dominate Bautista in the wrestling/grappling department. Bautista can scramble pretty well. He's got good submissions in his own right and never accepts bottom position. Never does. Bautista always fights to get back up and constantly scrambles to even, say, get into a better position himself or to get back to his feet. And he has the cardio to push that pace consistently. I'm going to say this now. I've been waiting to say it, and as I got further to the video, these odds are stupid. I'm going to tell you this now. Umar is a minus 535. Bautista plus 400. I know at open, Umar was like, what, 650, a 6-1 favorite. I'm telling you now, that is stupid beyond belief. I don't care what his last name is. I don't care how good he is. And I don't care how hard he pushed Merab. I don't. Mario Bautista is a much better fighter than to be a 6-1 underdog against Umar Nurmagomedov. Now, let me be very clear. I'm picking Umar Nurmagomedov to win. I think overall, Umar is going to be the better striker, especially at that long range. I think he's going to be able to mix up his striking and wrestling a bit more smoothly and more better transitionally than Bautista in the long run. I think when it comes to the battle positions and dominant positions, especially in the grappling, I think Umar is going to beat Bautista more so than Bautista will beat him. But I don't think Bautista should be that big of an underdog. I think he's going to push Umar in this fight. I think he's going to give Umar a much tougher fight than these odds would have you believe. These odds make you think that Umar should run over Bautista. I don't think that's going to happen at all. I think this is going to be a tough fight. I can even see Bautista winning a round, or at the very least, it's going to be a competitive 30-27 if it goes to that. Well, yes, I'm picking Umar, and I think he should win. As I said, the ability to mix in his striking and grappling, I think he does it at a bit more of a refined level than Bautista, and definitely does it with a much smoother transition from, say, positional grappling to dominant wrestling to striking. I just think Bautista is such a dog and such a workhorse that he's going to make Umar fight for really have to fight for these positions, and it's not going to be easy. I think about if by the off chance Mario Bautista gets one of the biggest upsets of this year, it's not necessarily that I would be shocked. I just think it's possible. Again, I'm not going to pick Bautista. I think Umar should win. And as I said, I've listed the reasons why Umar should win. But I respect Bautista's game a lot more than what these odds are. I'm not necessarily a guy who uses odds to predict his fights, but I'm going to give my opinion on what I think of odds at times because they do shape how we, the viewers, see the fight. So I'm going to leave that as my opinion. But overall, I'm going to pick Umar Nurmagomedov, and I'm going to pick him via decision. But with that being said, that has been my breakdown of this fight. If you like the video, comment to subscribe. I'd like to hear your thoughts. More specifically, do you think Mario Bautista has a better chance in this fight than the odds first say? Or do you think Umar should dominate him like the odds predict? I'd like to hear your thoughts on that in the comments. But with that being said, next up, I'll be breaking down our co-main event with Verna Jandiroba taking on Mackenzie Dern. But until then, I've been Bo from Brutal Commentary. I thank you all for listening. Take care.